Welcome. These are going to be a few thoughts about this day. It's the second Sunday of Easter. It's also known as Divine Mercy Sunday. And if you're not aware of what that is, I'll talk about that a little bit. So I want to share some stories, and this would not be for little kids. So if you have any little kids, I hope that there's no little kids on Facebook, but just don't let them watch this. Because I want to talk about God's mercy. And when you talk about God's mercy, sometimes you have to share what somebody's having mercy for, like why is it being shown? And today the floodgates are open, by the way. I just want to tell you that in case, to me, whether you're an atheist or Catholic or Protestant or whatever you're raised, the floodgates of mercy are open, and mercy is for everyone. And I was thinking about it today. I was up at 3 this morning and went to sing at a 7 o'clock in Gilbert. And I was just thinking about how this is really meant for everyone. And I was thinking, well, who would not be able to take advantage of it? And it struck me that it's the person who feels that they don't sin. They're the only ones that are deprived because they don't feel like they need it. And I just thought, wow, I mean, I think it's important to not have somebody be so scrupulous or beat themselves up all the time, like, oh, I'm all a sinner all the time. It's like, well, I'm a sinner, and so I need mercy. But for the other extreme is the person who says, whatever I do, I don't sin, and I don't need any forgiveness. And I know that there's different traditions that people have. I remember reading in cultural anthropology about the Inuit tribe in Alaska, where if fishing was bad, that they would gather, this fascinated me, they would gather in one of the communal spaces, and they would speak their sins because they felt like the fishing was bad because somebody was sinning against another person. And so everybody would speak their failings to each other, and then the fishing will get better. I mean, I just thought that's pretty cool, And then there's another tradition in AA. Anybody who's gone to any anonymous meeting of any kind, what usually moves me to tears is that people are not trying to impress, and they're not trying to be, show off their holiness. They're basically speaking their brokenness. And it's so, to me, the attitude is so humble. And if somebody's not, trust me, I mean, what I've seen when I visited these groups, that, man, they get called on it immediately. And I just remember thinking at times, being moved to tears, thinking this is what church should be, So often in churches, we're building little kingdoms instead of the kingdom. And so, the brokenness continues, but it's how beautiful. So in any case, today, the Feast of Divine Mercy, the Divine Mercy Sunday, the floodgates are open. And I can explain a little bit about how I was made aware of this devotion. I'm going to show you a picture of Divine Mercy so you can see what I'm talking about. This image is one that St. Faustina was asked by Jesus. Supposedly, that's what she said. And the church first said, no, this is not really happening. And so they ignored it and shelved it. And then this certain Cardinal Riolta, if I'm saying it correctly, brought it back in for restudy. And he asked the church to look at it again. And then eventually he became Pope John Paul II, and he wound up naming Sister Faustina Saint Faustina. And she said that Jesus appeared to her, and he would stand before her like this. He said, I want an image made like this. He said, these rays of light symbolize the blood and water that flowed from my side when my heart was pierced. And it's become an infinite ocean of mercy. And it's meant for everyone. He said, the world has forgotten my mercy. And so paint this picture and tell the world that the greatest attribute of God is mercy. And so I want to share that. I want to share, I'm glad that I found out about it and I started to open my heart to it before 1990, because that's when a tragedy struck my family. Most of you already know this. I know I've told this so many times. But July 4th, 1990, someone broke into my grandmother's house and stabbed her to death. Now that's a horrible thing. It was evil. It was not God's divine will that my grandmother would be killed. It's not. He didn't take her away, but he received her, I believe. And he loves the person that killed her. Like, he died on the cross for Steve Rodriguez, who killed her, stabbed her to death. And I knew when I first heard this news, I knew that either I had to, basically what I believed was true or it's not true. You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you do in the face of that? I remember pounding a chair one time, because when you're grieving, you got to keep this in mind. When you're grieving, you're going to be angry, you're going to feel nothing, you're going to be sad, you're going to laugh sometimes. It's like there's no rules to grieving. So I remember one time pounding this chair and saying, "Where were you, God, and why did you let this happen?" And after I was done pounding, I feel like God, I don't have visions, okay, but I feel like God said, "I was there. And how do you know I didn't stop this from happening 7 other times?" He said, in my mind, this is what came to mind was, if I don't allow you to harm each other, then you're really not free to love. Does that make sense to you? If you're not free to do evil, then you're not free to do good. And he gave us free will. We're not puppets on a string. So he was there for my grandmother, and he's also there right now for Steve Rodriguez, hoping that he'll accept his mercy. I believe that. And I didn't, how do I describe it? I came to that understanding. It's not like right away that's how I felt. Sometimes, by the way, the words at the bottom of this, "Jesus, I trust in you," those were the only words I could pray. And I remember Mother Teresa coming to St. Dominic's in San Francisco to hear the final vows of some of the sisters. And I remember asking the Virgin Mary, now, okay, those of you who are not Catholic, she's not God, she's not divine, she's human, and she really loves God a lot. She really magnifies God a lot, okay? So when I say I ask the Virgin Mary, it's like I ask you, will you please pray for those people in my family who are closed to mercy? But I'm not praying to you. Do you understand that? So in my mind, I can ask my grandmother, who was murdered, I can ask her to pray. But I'm not praying to her like I pray to God. I just got to make that clear. Because I asked the Virgin Mary, I said, "Hey, Mother Teresa's coming to town. I remember seeing a movie of her praying for the bombing to stop in some cities so they can get kids out of a hospital, and it stopped by 12 noon, just like she asked. And so I'm asking you if you would set it up so that I could meet her and ask her to pray for the killer and pray for my family so we don't get the cancer of hatred." And as it turns out, I was there for the final vows of her sisters and, handing out parking permits for people because there's no parking. And I didn't get a seat, so the sisters took me right up to the front, and there's this big statue of Mary standing with her hands open. I don't pray to statues, okay? I just want to make those things clear. Don't be thrown off from the story. But I feel like she was going like, "Hey, you like the seats I got you?" And it's like, cool. I remember watching her walking up the aisle, but I couldn't see her. All I could see was the flashes of the cameras. And then at the end of the Mass, when she stood up at the podium to talk, and I looked at the bishop holding his heart and almost falling out of his chair, leaning forward to hear this little woman say the words that he had said numerous times, I'm sure. "I was hungry and you fed me. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. I was in prison and you visited me. I was naked and you clothed me. I was an outcast and you befriended me." Something like that. She's saying these things. And the bishop and the priests are leaning forward because she spoke with authority. So she was handing out some things. Hi, I'm broadcasting. So someone just knocked on I'm not really in a restaurant, and that wasn't the manager coming to ask me to pay the bill and get out of here, but yeah. Okay, let's see here. I'll get back to the story. She was handing out miraculous medals at the door after Mass, so all these people, and I thought, well, I got to get back to this class, and I asked one of the nuns, I said, hey, would you ask her to please pray for my family, my grandmother, this happened, and they said, go to the convent and wait there, and she'll be there after. And I thought, well, but I've got to go to this class, and, Anyway, so I went to the convent, and there's this big statue of Mary in the convent chapel. And again, I don't have visions, but I feel like she goes, well, here you are. And I felt like, here I am, but it's time to go. So I got up to leave and walked into the entryway, and some people were coming in the front door. So I backed out of the way into this doorway, and the door behind me opened. And two people walked out, and Mother Teresa's standing there, and she waves me in. So I went in, and I sat with her, and I told her what happened. And my grandmother's name was Agnes, and she said that her sister's name was Agnes. I didn't know that her own name was Agnes too, but she said that her sister had died too, and that she was sad to hear this. And then we held hands and prayed a Hail Mary for my family, that we would not get the cancer of hatred. And we prayed one for the killer, that he would have a conversion. And she straightened up and she said, tell your family to forgive this man from the heart, and their pain will be lifted. And I said, well, we don't hate him. And she said, not enough not to hate. Tell your family to forgive this man from the heart, and their pain will be lifted. And I thanked her and left, and still made it to class. And it was a class about Mary, and the professor said, has anybody ever asked the Virgin Mary to pray for something, and then you've had that prayer answered? And so I raised my hand and told that story, because I'd just gotten back. My experience is, it's not right what this man did, but it is very right for me to forgive, because divine mercy calls me to do that. It doesn't mean that what he did was okay. It's not okay. It'll never be okay. And somebody said, well, God just chose to take your grandmother, and that's not true. It was not God's divine will for my grandmother to die. But God allows free will. And I'm saying this so clearly so that you can apply it to all the situations in your own life. You know what I'm talking about. Some of you have dealt with some huge tragedies. Apply it to that. God's divine will is not that there would be sickness. His divine will is that we wouldn't be mean to each other, that we wouldn't be suspicious of each other and kill each other. That's his divine will. His permissive will allows us to do whatever we want. And I heard this amazing phrase, we are free to decide to do anything. We are free to choose to do anything. But what we're not free from are the consequences of those choices. That's something to ponder. And I don't want to forget that. But what's beautiful about today, when I say today, the gates are open wide right now. Mercy is rushing upon the world. And those who are open to receive that, you can receive limitless graces, blessings, forgiveness, mercy. I mean, it's open right now. In fact, the official hour is 3:00, but hey, it's 11, it's almost 12 noon California time and Arizona time right now. And Mary and I are going to go to a service at, a mass we're going to leave at 2:00. And so I'm going to lead the chaplet today in an hour and a half. And this is a little bit of a test. I'm going to set up something so that it becomes live at 1:30 Pacific time today. And I'll lead the chaplet today. And I invite you, this is kind of fun to just kind of, ramble. I'm not worried about the length of time because, if people are you don't have the mental capacity, then, God bless you as you go. But to me, to ponder mercy for more than a second, more than a flicking through anything, is really a gift for yourself and for the people that you interact with. So another story of mercy is a woman that I interviewed years ago. And I just think it's so great to gather stories of mercy. And today would be a good day. This woman, Margot, said that her son was at, and again, it's a tragedy. There's a tragedy involved, but there's a beautiful mercy at the end. Margot was called late at night that her son had been killed in a hazing incident at college. He had, long story short, he had come into someone's dorm and the person shot him through the heart. She said he was dead before he hit the floor. And the young man did it out of reaction. He didn't plan to do anything like that, but and he asked forgiveness. And Margot and her husband said, yes, we're going to forgive. And someday I want to play that for you so that you can hear it. You can hear her voice say what when she explains this, because it's really quite amazing. So she wrote him a letter, and she said, we know that you didn't intend to do this, that it was an accident, and we forgive you, and we want you to live your life and do everything you can to have a full life, and we forgive you. And he thanked them, and he asked if there's anything that he could do. And she said, well, it would be really great if you could come and visit us and ask our forgiveness in person. That would mean a lot. And she said, I'll never forget the day that young man showed up at my door. She said his mom and dad were on each side of him because he couldn't stand up. Yeah. It always gets me. He couldn't stand up. She said you could tell. She was the poor thing. He was so devastated. But his mom and dad were holding him up as he came into our house. And the weird thing is that he looked like my son, Michael. And my little grandchild came in and said, Uncle Michael, to him. And I mean, it was quite a profound little moment. But she said we were able to tell him in person. He was able to say that he was sorry in person. We were able to tell him in person that we forgave. And that's divine mercy flowing through Margot. Now she's passed away and seeing her son Michael right now, I'm sure. I really feel like my grandmother is totally alive and well in heaven now. I didn't back then. As I said, sometimes all I could pray are these words that you're seeing on the screen. Jesus, I trust in you. And so this is the feast, and it's not just those stories. I've been asking about stories like that for years because I love to hear. Oh, another woman from Arizona. Again, don't let little kids watch this video because it's scary. I mean, to hear these things. There was two young men who were killing people in Arizona, and her mom and stepdad were a couple that they broke in and they killed them. It was execution style. And this woman, she said, I forgive. She had just become Catholic. And she said, a lot of people in her Catholic parish were saying, this is wrong that you're forgiving them. And she said, like, she's this new Christian, she's going, but Jesus says to forgive. And I don't know why, but I'm praying for them, and he's giving me love for them. And she wound up giving me her mom's rosary. And if you're watching this, I'd like to reconnect sometime because I haven't forgotten that she was able to process the grieving, but she chose to forgive, and she prays for it, and it's helped her heal. I've heard other stories. Maybe you've heard them too, So I do ask you to pray for the miraculous conversion of Steve Rodriguez. I wrote him a letter once, didn't hear back. Mary and I stopped at the prison once, and the warden wouldn't let us in because he said, you're not on his guest list. And I said, well, he wasn't on my grandmother's guest list, which maybe I thought I probably am not ready to see him, but I just think that's so ridiculous, So at least I told the chaplain to tell him that I believe that God wants him in heaven. I mean, that's the story of Saint Maria Goretti, the girl that was stabbed 13 times by Alessandro, is that his name, in Italy? Just as a small village many years ago. And he was belligerent. He was in prison for 8 years, cursing and saying he didn't need God. And then one night he had a dream that Maria was in front of him. with 13 flowers of light, and she was handing them to him, and she said, "You belong here too." And he woke up and asked for the priest, and he went to confession. And he later came to the church and knocked on the church door, and Maria's mom was helping at the rectory, and she answered the door. And he said, "I'm sorry." And she forgave him, and she said, "We need to go into the church together, so we will stop everybody from talking." So Maria's mom and Alessandro walked into the church together and knelt, and that's divine mercy. I'm just telling you, you can hate people that hurt you, or you can forgive them. This is a really good day for forgiveness. So it's interesting to think that I can be more angry at people in traffic, or relatives that are mean, or family that are mean. I can be more upset with that than somebody who killed someone. I mean, come on. It's like these little things seem to be harder for us, but this is the day of mercy. The floodgates are open. And I want to tell you one more story. And well, actually, I have to tell you another reason why my attention is pointed at this. Last year, my mom said, "Pray that I live until my birthday." I said, "Okay." She said, "I'll be 90. And it's Divine Mercy Sunday. So last year it was on April 11th. This year it's today. I don't even know the date. Isn't that funny? April 24th today. She goes, and she just wanted to make it to Divine Mercy. I thought, okay. And I remember her praying this chaplet. It's this little series of prayers if you haven't been part of it. That's what I'll do at 1:30. And then I remember listening over the phone as she led the chaplet with my dad as he was dying. And he died a peaceful death. And then later, my dad had on his tombstone, "Jesus, I trust in you." The words at the bottom of this picture, think about like they're pointing at something here, And then my mom would lead the chaplet when we came to stay with her as she was dying of pancreatic cancer. And she would lead it every day at 3 o'clock, because that's the hour of mercy. Most people will do it that time. And she led it. And I started to do some sing-along verses, until she couldn't lead it anymore. And then my sisters and my brother and we would sing it. And some friends that would come to the house, we would sing it with her in front of this image. And then it was after 4 a.m, the day that she died, my sisters and I were gathered around praying this chaplet of mercy over my mom. And at the very final words, which are, "Holy God, Holy Mighty One, Holy Immortal One, have mercy on us and on the whole world," she breathed her last and looked to me like she had a smile on her face. I remember asking her, "Try to die with a smile on your face." She said, "I'll do my best," And it was like so peaceful. So I think of the ways that my parents have pointed to this, and they prayed this every day together. Thinking about that. Now I want to fast forward to a story I just heard last week, and then I'm going to wrap this up because I want to get ready for the chaplet. And it'll be here at the same time, same channel. But I just heard about a woman in Michigan, and I won't get all the exact things correct, but she has been in a wheelchair for 13 years, and I don't know if she's 30 or 40, I don't know how old she is, but she had a trach, so the tube that helped her breathe, and her air passage was in the process of collapsing. There's some kind of syndrome that she had, but she hadn't walked for 13 years. And she's at this healing mass in Michigan. And the woman who was speaking it was a conference or something. The woman who was speaking said, I don't claim to have the gift of healing, but God heals. And she said, I just invite people to, open your hands and reach up to God, and like you're reaching up to your dad to pick you up, and just say, I need you, Papa, or I need you, however she said it. And this woman said, okay, she reached up and she said, I always felt like I was, God's creation, but I was made with spare parts because I've been so unhealthy. She goes, I always felt like I wasn't deserving of anything special like that. But when she lifted up her hands, she felt something different in her breathing. And the woman up front said, I get a sense somebody in here is having, oxygen is filling the lungs, and there's healing going on. So she said, thank God for that, or something like this. So this woman takes out her breathing tube, takes out whatever the oxygen was, and that usually constituted an emergency, her husband later said. She took it out, and she looked at her husband, and he looked at her, and her mom was saying, "Oh, don't cry. Maybe you'll be healed next time." And the husband goes, "The tube's out." And then the woman said, "So if you want to give thanks, you're welcome to come to the front." And so the woman stood up. She stepped out of the pew, and her husband said, "I'll get the chair." And she goes, "No, we can walk up. I'll hold your hand." And she walked up to the front, and she's only beginning better and better. And the physical therapist that came in said, "You don't need physical therapy anymore." And the doctor just said, "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it," because she only uses the oxygen at night when she sleeps, and she doesn't use it during the day, and she's walking around now. So I'm just saying that image came to mind today, and I was going to find some way, and this might be the way to do it, to invite you to try that. And those of you who know my wife's story, the day that I met her, she said, I want more than anything to talk about God's mercy in my life. And her testimony has been shared for 28 years more now. But that mercy, and it was, I think it's a process or a combination of things where we humble ourselves. Because if I humble myself, then I'm willing to admit the possibility that I sin, that I have done something wrong. And then only then could I be open to receive mercy. Does that make sense? So whatever you believe or don't believe, I don't know what how your culture handles when you sin or what you call sin. I'm going to leave that up for your examination. But there are some basic things that break our relationship with love. And love wants to restore that relationship. And this is Divine Mercy Sunday. And I'll say it a few more times. The floodgates are open. So if you see this video, I invite you to try something. Now do this when no one else is looking, so that don't do it in a restaurant. Like I'm really in my garage in a little office. Go into your room by yourself where nobody sees you but God, and try this, where you just lift up your hands like you're this little kid. And I don't know if you had a horrible dad or a wonderful dad, but pretend that you had a wonderful dad. You know what I'm saying? Or it's an uncle or a grandpa or somebody that you relate to. And just speak to God that way and say, "I need you. I want you to please pick me up." And then ask for whatever healing that you want. Physical healing, emotional healing, spiritual healing, intellectual healing, psychological healing. Look, whatever the onion levels are for you. I just think today, I just don't want you to miss the chance. And again, this is if you're atheist, Catholic, Protestant, non-denominational, no denomination, no church, nothing, whatever, anyone. Humble yourself. Jesus said, nobody enters the kingdom of heaven unless you become like a little child. You cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. And some people want to resist what they were like when they were a child. I have a very simple time remembering when I was 3, remembering when I was 7, and I loved my heart back then. I become somewhat jaded as I get older, but what's great is the gift is I remember my heart back then. And it's a huge gift for anybody at any age to enter into that kind of innocence and wonder and trust and hope in possibilities. So I invite you to take advantage of this day. And I'm going to, I think I want to I meant to put these up earlier so you could see, like, yes, it's Divine Mercy Sunday, to have that kind of reminded and, imprinted on your mind that it's Divine Mercy Sunday. So take a few minutes, go somewhere by yourself and, shut your phone down and be open to God's mercy and ask God like a little child, hold me. You can say things like this, like, are you real or are you a fairy tale? I don't know, because a lot of people think that. They're confused about that. They don't know. And so it's like, just say it. He can take it. Are you fake? Are you fake news? Is this real? And then just say, if you're real, please, I need you to embrace me, to hold me, to heal me. Be open. I mean, otherwise, you're basically saying no. And in this meditation, Jesus says to tell the world that the gate of mercy is opened now. A time is coming when the gate of mercy will be closed. So come while the gate is open, because if those who refuse to enter the gate of mercy must go through the gate of justice. And I really think you don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. So I invite you, in whatever way you can imagine doing this, to say, yes, I would like to come through the gate of mercy. If there is such a thing, ask that. Just ask it as a person that doesn't believe anything. Just say, if this is real, I do want mercy. If there's really two gates, and if there's really one that's going to be a bad gate, I want to go through the good one, however you want to approach it, in a childlike way, in a humble way. And I believe that would be received. I believe it's already received. Just a thought that you want to do it. So I wish you well today. And this is the longest live announcement I've ever made. How long has it been going? 31 minutes and 32 seconds. You amazing people, whoever's on Facebook, you get a prize for listening that long. But I want you to take advantage of the flood waters that have been released onto the world today. Don't miss the flood of grace, the flood of healing, the flood of love and mercy and light and hope. It's available right now. I didn't want you to miss it. Thanks for listening. And if you're one of those people who've been praying the Novena of Mercy, that ended yesterday, but we still pray it every day at 3. So I'll be back on here it's 12:20 right now. I'll be back on in a little over an hour to do the chaplet, and it takes about 20 to 30 minutes. And then Mary and I are going to a Divine Mercy Mass and Holy Hour and Confession. I love it. I'm so excited for today. I'm so excited for anyone out there who sees this video and takes advantage of this glorious day, this Divine Mercy Sunday. Thank you for listening. And I'm going to sign out. Take care. God bless you.